good situational awareness will help you take pressure off yourself, because we all know that as the heart rate goes up, we may operate better, but if the heart rate goes too high, if we get too excited, too overexcited, our performance starts going down. So we need to stay reasonably calm and collected. Well, situational awareness is always important, and situational awareness with regard to the weather is really important, because situational awareness requires you really to make observations and then to interpret those observations as to how the weather is going to be evolving out ahead of you. So good situational awareness leads to a good understanding of what the weather is likely to be ahead of you. That gives you confidence in your decision making and gives you the ability to turn around when you need to, or conversely to push on when conditions are getting a bit tricky. If we're about to go off in our little airplane, we need to know what the weather's likely to be out there ahead of us. So the first thing we do is we look at the weather forecasts, and we gather as much information about our flying route as possible. I think at that stage what's important is to gather information about the general situation, so that you know what the big picture is likely to be over the period of time that you are flying. This way can give you two things. One, the rate of change that you can expect during your flight. For example, the winds are developing, or there's a front moving up at this sort of speed. It can give you an idea of how things changing during your flight. But it also gives you, by looking at the overall picture, gives you an idea of how accurate the forecasts might be. Because if we're looking at slow moving, sluggish stuff, it doesn't take much of a change for the digital forecasts that we've all become so reliant on to change quite a lot. So having a big picture gives you an idea of the rate of change that's happening, and gives you some confidence in the detailed forecasts that you'll pick up, which will tell you winds aloft, which will tell you winds at the areas that you're going to. So you gather this information to make your initial assessment, along with webcams en route and that sort of thing. You're not trying to fly the route now, you're trying to fly the route in some time, in 4 or 5 hours time. So you're building a model of how the weather's behaving and what the weather's going to look like in that time. Then the first thing you do is to begin to reassess that model. You get to the airfield, you look at the windsocks, you look at the METARs out en route, and you say to yourself, well, my model is suggesting it was going to be calm on the ground, but I've actually got a 10-knot northwesterly. No problem for taking off, but was I expecting that? And it may be that if I've got the northwesterly already, then it may be developing faster than expected. I need to adjust my model. And in adjusting my model, should I be making different decisions about where I'm routing to or even about my destination? So you start to reassess on the ground before you take off, particularly the wind and the cloud cover. And then as you get airborne, you are constantly reassessing your weather, because New Zealand is a bunch of big valleys, small and big valleys. And as you go from one area to the next, as they say, every 50 kilometres the scenery changes, so does the weather. Every 50 k's the weather changes. So you're looking ahead the next 50 k's, is this fitting your model? And you're reassessing the conditions as you go. So that's what I mean by assessing and reassessing weather conditions and with regard to your situational awareness. Well, if we believe that flying in New Zealand is all about understanding and following the weather and being responsive to the weather patterns. Flying in New Zealand, you have to be responsive to the weather patterns, and the clouds that one sees are generally a direct indicator of some aspects of the weather. Clouds can show wind direction, clouds can show which kind of model is being applied, clouds and the cloud shadows. I look at cloud shadows to pick up the wind directions aloft. I look at the type of cloud, for example, if it's these puffy cumulus, telling me I'm getting thermals of the dominant atmospheric model for the day. If I'm seeing a split cloud base with high cloud and low cloud right close to each other and maybe bits of towering cloud in between, I know I've got a convergence model. If I've got ridges with a cloud cap on it, then I know the wind's blowing onto those ridges. And the smooth cloud cap clouds is indicating that the ridge atmospheric model is dominant. And then the wave model, which for GA pilots is sometimes hard to be a part of, by looking aloft to see those smooth wave-like clouds that stretch parallel to ridges, parallel to the major ridges, even parallel to the main divide, and even that very high level, what we call northwest arch, that smooth-edged cloud. These are indications that the wave model may be affecting you significantly down on the ground. So being able to recognise wave clouds, thermal clouds, cloud caps on ridges and convergence clouds will help the GA pilot navigate his way through New Zealand's somewhat complex weather patterns. To me, situational awareness is the awareness of a rugby player who is buried in the bottom of a pack on the ground, and he still knows exactly where the ball is going, and he knows that the wingman is probably taking it about now. That's situational awareness. He's arrived at that, even though he can't see the ball going out anymore, he knows that everybody was strung out in that direction, the backs were all about to do that, the plan was roughly to do this and that. He's now crunched on the ground, can't see. He knows what's happening to the ball, so that as soon as that player can get up, he can run in the right direction to support it. That's situational awareness. In terms of flying, situational awareness in the mountains needs to revolve around the time and space. That is, how big are the mountains, how big are the valleys, so you know where you can turn around easily, so you can always keep an escape route open. You know where to go if something unexpected happens, like heavy sink or the weather comes down in the head of the valley. You've always got an escape route. Situational awareness leads you to that. Situational awareness leads you, it even includes things that are happening inside your aeroplane. The fact that it's a wee bit bumpy and your passenger behind you is getting ill, this may lead you to make decisions about where to fly or where not to fly. Situational awareness is trying to understand everything that is happening inside and outside your plane in a way that you are able to focus then on the important stuff. You need to be able to, you might be at the bottom of the rugby pack and you know the wing is just about to receive the ball, and you know that if you just get to that position there, you may be able to support him. So you're able to make a very focused decision based on what was a broad situational awareness. And I think that GA pilots, the very experienced ones, have very broad situational awareness. They're not even aware that they have that level of awareness. But situational awareness is based on very good observations outside the aeroplane. It's based on good understanding of atmospheric models. It's based on the performance of your aeroplane and the ability to fly that aeroplane without thinking too much, and also to have the empathy to consider what's happening inside your aeroplane with your passengers and indeed yourself. situational awareness will help you, good situational awareness will help you take pressure off yourself, because we all know that as the heart rate goes up, we may operate better, but if the heart rate goes too high, if we get too excited, too overexcited, our performance starts going down. So we need to stay reasonably calm and collected in the aeroplane as the pilot. And so understanding and knowledge and situational awareness is really important to maintaining a calm pilot. Quite a few years ago, I was flying in a competition which involved flying from Alexandra up to Omarama, and I was pushing into the Lindis Pass a little bit low and still on the south side of the pass when I ran into heavy sink. And I was in unlandable terrain, and as I went into sink, I realized I was not going to cross the pass ahead of me. There was nowhere to land underneath me, and I started to panic. My heart rate went up, adrenaline rushed through my system, and I felt my tunnel vision coming in. I felt myself getting into the tunnel vision mode, and all I could think of was get this aeroplane, this glider, turned around. Just keep it flying and get it turned around, and at least go back the way you came from, and something might sort itself out. I really didn't have a good escape plan in my head. I just thought I would get back out. And then as I got back out, I went, well, there's a landing field over there near Gudja. I'll fly in that direction. So with my heart rate calming a little bit, I went out towards this landing where I could land. I arrived there almost 3,000 feet above it, lots of height above it. Went round a couple of times and went, I don't know what all that panic was about. But I've never forgotten how incapacitated I was when I got into a panic situation, in a situation I had not anticipated, was outside my experience level, and I swore I would never let my adrenaline levels get so high in a glider again. So when I feel the adrenaline coming up, I think, how do I manage this? Firstly, do I understand what I'm getting excited about? And before, if I can't answer that question and say no, then I'll begin to turn around and move to a situation where I can calm down a bit. I never again want to get into that situation of high panic levels, narrowing vision, which is exactly designed to run away from a grizzly bear as fast as possible. Can't do that in an airplane or a glider. Quite a few years ago, I was flying out of Christchurch to Methven, just a short flight across the plains, pretty straightforward and simple. Weather in Christchurch was good. I took off, and the tower called me and said, oh, there's a southerly squall line just to the south of the airfield. And I sort of said, yep, I see that, that's fine, thank you. And I thought, oh, southerly squall line, I can fly through that at 500 feet or so. And off I went. And as I approached, I noticed that there was lightning coming down out of the squall line. I thought, oh, well, I'll go where the lightning's not. And I noticed that there was quite heavy precipitation. And I thought, well, I can still see through it there. I'll fly low through the precipitation at 600 or 700 feet, and I should be okay. Well, as I went into the precipitation, it wasn't rain, it was sleety snow, and it began to stick to the window of my little Piper Cub, and quite quickly I couldn't see out of the front window. I had to fly a little bit sideways to see out the side window. Thought, this is not good, not sure how far this is going to go, got big paddocks underneath me, I'll do a quick circuit and land in one of these paddocks and let it go away. So around I went, straightened up above the paddock, short final, and about 1.5 meters above the ground, the little aeroplane went clunk onto the ground, and my undercarriage folded up around me. And I went, what on earth happened there? Of course, I got out of the aeroplane, and not only was my window covered in sleety snow and blocked up, but of course the wings had iced up. And what I had failed to notice, and my somewhat narrow situation awareness failed to alert me to. Just because the window was getting covered in sleety snow, I ignored the fact that my leading edge of my wings was also getting covered, and when I came to round out and land, the stall speed had gone up by 10 knots or more, and the thing stalled above the ground and I crunched onto the ground. So that was a great lesson in understanding the ramifications of everything going on around you. If you can't see out the window, whatever's happening on the window is happening on your wings as well.